The dry season had stripped the village of color. The riverbed was nothing but cracked clay, and the air smelled like dust and salt from sweat. Goats bleated weakly in their pens, and the sky held its breath, waiting for rain that never came. Hunger had become the village's only god. Nandi was 17, thin but strong, her skin sun-dark and her eyes carrying that kind of quiet fire only people who've lost too much could have. Her stepfather, Bako, saw that fire as defiance. Ever since her mother's death, he'd told her, "You eat too much for a girl who brings nothing." She ate less every week. Still, the food never lasted. That morning she woke to voices, low, bargaining tones drifting through the mud walls. She didn't need to hear the words to know what was happening. The night before, Bako had told her, "Tomorrow we'll eat well." When she stepped outside, Bako stood with a stranger. The man wore a trader's robe, faded and patched, and his cart was filled with sacks of grain and dried meat. The smell alone made Nandi dizzy. "This is her?" the man asked. Bako nodded. "Strong enough to carry water. Knows how to grind millet. No family left." "She's your daughter?" "My wife's," Bako spat. "Not mine." Nandi's throat tightened. She wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. The fields were dead, the forest full of men worse than hunger. The trader studied her with unreadable eyes. "What's her price?" "2 sacks of millet. 1 of salt." The trader didn't argue. He dropped the sacks to the ground, dust rising like smoke. Then, softly, "You're selling your blood for food." Bako glared. "Blood doesn't fill bellies." He turned to Nandi. "Go. Be useful somewhere else." She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She just looked at him, long enough for him to look away. The trader gestured toward the cart. "Come." The road out of the village was silent except for the creak of the wheels. Nandi didn't ask where they were going. Her stomach clenched at the smell of food, but she didn't reach for it. She sat, eyes on the horizon, wind hitting her face like sandpaper. After a long time the trader spoke. "You don't ask where I'm taking you. Does it matter?" "Maybe." She shrugged. "Men don't take girls for kindness." He smiled faintly. "True. But not all men buy for cruelty either." They rode in silence again. The sun began to fall. Shadows stretched across the road, long and thin like ghosts. At last they stopped at a cluster of clay houses near a small stream, one of the few still alive. Chickens scratched the earth. The smell of roasted maize drifted from somewhere nearby. He helped her down. "You'll stay here tonight," he said. "Then we'll talk." Inside the house there was food, not a feast but enough to make her dizzy with want. He gave her a bowl. She hesitated. "Eat," he said. The first mouthful nearly made her cry. It wasn't the taste, it was the warmth. Warm food felt like forgiveness. When she finished, she looked at him for the first time. His face was calm but searching. "You don't remember me, do you?" he asked. She frowned. "Should I?" He smiled, but it wasn't joyful. "Years ago your mother helped me when no one else would. She saved my sister's life. She gave away her own food to feed us. I swore I'd repay her one day." Nandi froze. Her hands trembled. "So you?" He nodded. "I didn't buy you, Nandi. I bought your freedom before someone worse did." Outside, thunder rolled for the first time in months. The wind shifted and the smell of rain crept through the air. Cliffhanger. Nandi steps outside and sees the first raindrops fall, heavy, slow, as if the sky itself is testing her fate. But behind her, the man watches with eyes that hide another truth. He didn't tell her everything about why he came for her. Rain came that night, slow at first, then fierce. It fell on the thatched roof like drumming fingers, like something restless trying to speak. Nandi lay on a woven mat, staring at the wooden ceiling. Sleep wouldn't come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her stepfather's face, blank, unashamed, and the trader's words echoing, "Your mother saved my sister's life." She turned toward the small fire still burning in the clay hearth. The man sat there, cross-legged, sharpening a small blade. He looked calm but not peaceful, like someone used to keeping thoughts hidden behind silence. "Who are you really?" she asked finally. He didn't look up. "A man who keeps promises." "That's not a name." He smiled faintly. "They call me Kenu. I trade in goods, yes, but mostly in debts." Nandi frowned. "Debts." He nodded toward the rain outside. "Every kindness costs something in this world, girl. Even mercy. Your mother saved a life, and a curse came with it." The room felt colder suddenly. "What curse?" Kenu's knife stopped moving. He looked up at her, eyes sharp like wet stone. "When your mother took food from the shrine store to feed my sister, she broke a vow made to the river spirits. The food was meant for them. That night, the river flooded, and the priest said the debt must be repaid in blood before a generation passed. Nandi's voice dropped to a whisper. So you came to take my life? If I wanted that, you'd be dead already, he said softly. But the river doesn't always want blood. Sometimes it wants what blood carries, a voice, a promise, a name. She stared at him. You talk in riddles. He leaned closer. Then listen clearly. The rain is back because of you. You're her blood, her payment. The river called for you. For a long moment, all she heard was rain and her heartbeat. She stood up. I don't belong to the river. I belong to myself. Kenu's expression softened. Your mother said the same thing. He rose, stepped past her and opened the door. The storm light spilled in, a pale shimmer of moon and lightning. Outside, the stream beside his hut churned violently, far more than rain alone could cause. Look, he said. Nandi stepped closer. Beneath the frothing surface, shapes moved, not fish, not driftwood. Faces. Pale, shifting faces. Some young, some old. All looking up. She stumbled back. What is that? The river remembers every broken oath, Kenu said. And it remembers every soul tied to it. You can still choose but not for long. The river will come for you soon. Her voice trembled. And you'll just let it? I'll take you to the shrine. That's all I can do. Nandi clenched her fists. Then I'll find my own way. She turned and ran into the rain. Her bare feet slapped against the wet clay road. The downpour soaked her hair, her clothes, her breath. She didn't know where she was going, only that she refused to be part of anyone's debt. Behind her, the thunder rolled again, deeper this time like laughter from under the earth. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs trembled. Then she saw something glowing faintly ahead, a small pond reflecting silver light even through the storm. When she stepped closer, the wind died. The rain slowed to a mist. Her reflection in the water blinked, once, twice, then smiled, though her own lips did not move. Nandi froze. The reflection whispered, he's not lying. But he's not telling you everything either. Who are you? Nandi whispered back. I'm what your mother left behind. The voice trembled, half water, half air. She bargained with the river to save you once. The man you ran from, he's the other half of that promise. Lightning flared, and for a split second Nandi saw the reflection change, her mother's face staring back at her, eyes full of sorrow. Then the surface broke apart, something pulling from below, reaching. A hand of water. She stumbled back, screaming. The storm roared again, and in the distance she thought she heard Kenu calling her name. The river was awake now. And it had found her. By dawn the storm had emptied itself. Mist rose from the fields like pale smoke, softening the edges of the world. Nandi sat by the fire Kenu had made, wrapped in a thick cloth. Her hair clung to her face, her lips were blue but her eyes, they burned. You said it's begun, she muttered. What did you mean? Kenu crouched across from her, the carved token still in his palm. It looked newly made, yet the wood was swollen, damp, alive. Tiny droplets bled from it like sweat. The river doesn't carve these, he said quietly. It births them. Every time a promise wakes. He threw the token into the fire. It hissed but didn't burn. Instead, the flames turned pale blue for an instant, then went back to gold. You've been marked, he said. The river has taken your name into its mouth. There's no running now. Nandi clenched her jaw. You said you'd take me to the shrine. Then do it. Kenu's eyes flickered. You're not ready. Ready for what? To die. No, he stood, shoulders straight as a spear. To remember. The journey to the shrine took a day and a half. They followed narrow forest paths lined with giant palms and listening cicadas. The air grew heavy and the soil turned darker, almost black. Nandi said little, though questions crowded her throat like stones. Sometimes she swore the river followed them, a whisper in the leaves, a glimmer between trees. By dusk of the second day they reached it, an old structure half swallowed by vines and moss. The shrine leaned against a waterfall, its steps slick with green. At its heart stood a massive basin carved from river stone, filled with water that shimmered with an inner light. This is where your mother came, Kenu said softly. 16 years ago. He set down a gourd, drew a knife and cut a thin line across his palm. The blood dripped into the basin. The water shivered, once, twice, then cleared. Look. Nandi stepped closer. The water's surface rippled and then opened, showing an image beneath. A younger woman kneeling before the same basin, her mother. Her face was gaunt, desperate. In the vision, a voice rose, deep and echoing like a current speaking. You come to ask for a child. Her mother's voice trembled. A child to carry my name. A daughter to heal what this river took. And what will you give, woman of broken vows? I will give her voice. Nandi gasped. Her voice. Kenu's expression darkened. The river took your mother's singing the night you were born. She gave it so you could live. But the river was never done. It wanted more. It wanted what her voice carried, her spirit, her strength. You inherited both. That's why it calls you now. Nandi stared into the basin as tears blurred her vision. She gave up her gift, for me? Kenu nodded. And now the river says the debt must be completed. She clenched her fists. Then let it take something else. My voice belongs to me. The shrine rumbled faintly, the waterfall roaring louder. The river doesn't ask, Kenu said. It remembers. That night they camped beside the shrine. Nandi couldn't sleep. The basin's glow pulsed faintly in the darkness, like a heartbeat. She crept toward it. The water's surface was still, then shifted as if sensing her. And a face appeared. Her mother. Pale, calm eyes like distant storms. My child, the reflection said softly. I hoped you'd never have to come here. Nandi fell to her knees. Why did you leave me with them? Why didn't you tell me? Because I had to choose between silence and your life. And silence was easier. Easier for who? Nandi's voice broke. The reflection smiled sadly. You think the river wants your voice. It wants what's inside it, truth. And truth always hurts the liars. The glow deepened. The water rose slightly, rippling toward her fingers. Do you want to live, Nandi? Nandi nodded. Then learn to sing what must not be heard. The water lashed up, struck her chest, and the world went white. When she opened her eyes, it was dawn again. Her throat burned as if she'd swallowed fire. Kenu knelt beside her, gripping her shoulders. What did you do? He demanded. She stared at him and realized something strange. She could hear the river. Not just its sound but its meaning. Its whisper wove through her mind, words made of current and mist. She spoke to me, Nandi murmured. My mother. The river too. They're one. Kenu's face drained of color. Then it's already begun. The waterfall behind them swelled, its roar growing deeper, almost human. From within it, a voice boomed. The child of the river has remembered. The debt shall be paid in full. The air shivered. The figure before Nandi was not fully solid. Its shape flickered between water and light, its face both her mother's and something older. The waterfall bent around it, refusing to touch. Kenu dropped to one knee. River mother, he whispered, voice trembling. The figure's eyes glowed a soft blue. When it spoke, the voice was layered. One moment her mother's tone, the next the river's eternal hum. You carry what was left unfinished, it said. What was promised must now be fulfilled. Nandi struggled to her feet. You're not her. I am every echo that made her, the spirit replied. She gave her voice so you could be born. You are her memory, her song, her debt. The words rolled through Nandi like thunder under her skin. You want my life, she said bitterly. Just like you took hers. No, the water shifted, rippling like sorrow. We never take. Humans offer. But what they offer, they forget. Kenu stood beside her, voice low. She's telling the truth, Nandi. The river doesn't kill, it remembers what's owed. I owe nothing. Nandi shouted. I didn't ask for this. The spirit's eyes flared. The ground trembled. And yet you carry it. Every lie spoken in silence, every truth buried by fear. You hear them now, don't you? Nandi froze. Because it was true. Since touching the basin, her ears had filled with whispers, soft voices beneath the surface, like stories trapped in mud. Please. Secrets. The confessions of the forgotten. I hear them, she admitted. But I don't understand. You will. The river mother extended her hand. Step forward. Kenu grabbed Nandi's wrist. Don't. Once you cross that water, you won't come back the same. Nandi looked at him, at the fear in his eyes, then at the shimmering hand waiting for hers. She took a breath, feeling the pulse of the river deep beneath her feet. I already crossed once, she said quietly. She stepped forward. The moment her skin touched the river mother's hand, the world dissolved. The forest fell away, the air vanished, and Nandi plunged into a realm of light and current. She found herself standing in a vast expanse beneath the surface, a cathedral made of flowing water. Faces moved within the waves, translucent and shifting. Men, women, children. All watching her. This is where the drowned truths wait, said the River Mother, her voice echoing through the chamber. Every promise broken, every name forgotten. Nandi's heart pounded. Why show me this? Because you must decide if they stay silent. The river can no longer hold them. A wave rolled past and the faces screamed, thousands of unheard cries bursting into sound. The noise was unbearable, full of pain and longing. Make it stop. Nandi clutched her head. Only you can, the River Mother said gently. Your voice is the bridge between their silence and the living world. Speak and they will be free. But if I speak, Nandi whispered, what happens to me? The River Mother's gaze softened. Then you belong to the water, forever carried by it, never forgotten, never at rest. Nandi stared at the glowing currents swirling around her. She could feel her heartbeat sinking with the flow. For the first time, she understood the weight of her mother's choice, and the kind of love it must have taken. I don't want to belong to anyone, she said softly. Not to them. Not to you. The spirit tilted its head. Then make your own vow. The current slowed. Silence fell. Every ghostly face turned toward her, waiting. Nandi straightened her back, raised her chin and said, if truth must live, then let it live in every mouth that can speak, not just mine. The water pulsed. The River Mother's expression changed, almost proud. So be it. A surge of power burst through Nandi's chest. Her voice rose, not in song but in a sound like light breaking the surface of water. The current carried it outward. On the surface, Kenu saw the waterfall explode upward, shooting into the sky like a column of blue fire. Then it rained, not water but silver mist, and he heard thousands of whispers turning into a single note. When Nandi emerged, her skin shimmered faintly, her eyes reflecting waves. Her breath came in soft ripples. The River Mother was gone. What happened? Kenu asked, awed. She gave me a choice, Nandi said. And I chose to let truth walk on land. He frowned. I don't understand. You will, she murmured. Everyone will. Behind them, the waterfall's roar changed. It began to hum softly, like a distant song carried through stone. Smoke still hung in the morning air when they reached the trading camp. The ashes were wet, not from fire, but from a night of strange rain that had fallen only in this place. Tents were nothing but blackened rags. Carts had melted, oxen lay still, their eyes open as if watching something that wasn't there. Kenu covered his mouth. I told them to leave this land, he muttered. But they wouldn't listen. Nandi stepped forward, her bare feet sinking into the mud. She could feel the pull beneath the soil, the heartbeat of the river, echoing faintly beneath her skin. Only one man was left alive. He knelt near the ruins of a wagon, shaking, his face blistered from heat and fear. When he saw her, he began to crawl backward, eyes wide. It's her, he screamed. She walked through the fire. The river sent her back. Nandi froze. What are you saying? The man's teeth chattered. We sold you for food. We thought it would end there. But at midnight, the flames rose from the ground. The fire spoke. It called your name over and over until the tents burned to ash. He began sobbing. We tried to run but the mud swallowed us. Only I was left to see. Kenu looked at Nandi, voice hushed. What did you do? She shook her head slowly. Nothing. But deep inside she knew the truth. The River Mother had begun keeping its promise. Truth walks on land now. They buried the bodies in silence. As they worked, the clouds gathered again, dark, low, watchful. When the last body was laid down, a ripple passed through the puddles on the ground, though no wind blew. Kenu touched Nandi's arm. It's following you. The current listens. Then let it listen, she said. That night they returned to the village. Word of the burned camp had already spread. The elders gathered in the main courtyard, their torches flickering nervously. Old women whispered that the fire was a curse, that Nandi had brought ruin from the river. Others said she was a messenger of the gods. When she stepped forward, the murmurs fell silent. The chief stood, his robe embroidered with cowrie shells that rattled softly. Girl, he said, you vanished with a traitor and now you return with death behind you. What have you done? Nandi lifted her chin. I've spoken nothing but truth. A ripple of discomfort moved through the crowd. She stepped closer, her voice calm but echoing faintly, as though another spoke through her. You all know how my mother died. You all knew how I was treated. And yet no one spoke. You saw hunger, cruelty, lies, and you looked away. An old woman in the back began to weep. The river remembers, Nandi continued. It doesn't forget what men bury in silence. Last night was only the beginning. Thunder rumbled far away, soft but clear. The chief frowned. Are you threatening us? I'm warning you, she said. If truth is not spoken here, it will burn its way through everything that hides it. For a long time no one moved. Then one man stepped forward, her uncle. Your mother's death was not an accident, he said hoarsely. We knew. We all knew. Mara, she gave her to the river. Gasps filled the air. The chief's eyes widened. You speak lies. But the ground beneath them trembled. The torches flickered blue. And from the river's direction came a sound, a faint melody, like a woman humming in the distance. Kenu's voice dropped to a whisper. She's coming. The elders began to panic. Some ran. Others dropped to their knees, praying. Only Nandi stood still. She could feel the hum of the water in her chest again, stronger this time. I told you, she said softly. Truth walks now. And it burns. The chief turned to her, desperate. Make it stop. I can't, she said. It's already begun. Lightning flashed, not from the sky but from the river itself. A blue arc split the horizon, and a roar followed that was not thunder but something alive. Kenu shielded his face. What is it doing? Listening, Nandi said. It's listening for more lies. By dawn the village was silent. The rain had fallen only on the chief's compound, washing the roof clean and leaving a mark burned into the ground, the shape of a woman's face. When Nandi stepped outside, Kenu was waiting. You've started something that can't be undone, he said. She met his gaze, eyes calm. Then let it finish what it began. He hesitated, then nodded. Where will you go? To the upper stream, she said. There are more villages that need to remember. Kenu reached into his satchel and handed her a small carving, a charm of driftwood shaped like a shell. For when you forget who you are, he said quietly. The water listens to this. She smiled faintly. So will I. And she walked away barefoot, the morning mist wrapping around her like a veil. Behind her, the river glimmered, and somewhere deep beneath, the voices whispered her name again. The forest grew thicker as Nandi moved upriver. Morning fog hung between the trees like ghosts caught mid-breath. Her feet bled from roots and stones, but she did not stop. Each time she stumbled, the river's voice, faint but steady, hummed from somewhere within her bones, guiding her north. By noon she reached a clearing. A new village lay beyond the tall reeds, smaller, quieter, and stranger. No smoke rose from its hearths. No laughter of children. Only the steady drone of wind through hollow gourds tied to poles, each one humming softly. She approached a woman pounding grain outside her hut. The woman looked up sharply, eyes rimmed in white ash. You shouldn't have come here, she said. I'm only passing through, Nandi replied. I seek food and water. The woman stared for a long moment, then handed her a calabash. Drink. But when the sun sets, stay indoors. This village doesn't like the sound of crying. Nandi frowned. Why? The woman didn't answer. She turned back to her pestle and began to pound again, slow, steady, rhythmic, as if keeping time with something unseen. As evening fell, the quiet deepened. Even the crickets seemed afraid to sing. Nandi sat beside a small fire, Kenu's wooden charm in her palm. The flames reflected faint blue on its surface, the same shade as the lightning that had struck her home. She heard it then, faint, almost human, a sound drifting from across the river. A cry. Not of pain but of longing. A child's voice. She rose, clutching the charm. The moon slid from behind a cloud, silvering the riverbank. There at the water's edge a small boy sat, no older than 6. His back was turned, his clothes torn, his shoulders shaking. Nandi knelt beside him. Little one, she said softly. Why do you cry? He didn't look up. Because they won't let me come home. Who? He turned then and her breath caught. His eyes were pale, glassy like shallow water. You shouldn't be here, he whispered. They'll hear you. Who will hear me? The river's children, he said. They echo what they're given. If you cry, they cry. If you lie. He didn't finish. He only looked at her, trembling. Suddenly, the gourds in the village began to hum louder, each one vibrating with a sound like distant thunder. The boy stood and began to back away. It's too late, he said. The river began to stir. Ripples formed where none should. The current reversed direction, pulling inward toward the center. Something moved beneath the surface, many somethings, voices overlapping, whispering words she couldn't understand. The villagers emerged, torches shaking in their hands. The woman from before shouted, Get inside. Don't answer the sound. But it was already too late. A wave surged upward, not of water but of shapes. Faces made of mist, hands of liquid light. They opened their mouths and the air filled with 1,000 copies of the same sound, a child's cry. The villagers dropped their torches, covering their ears, screaming. Nandi staggered backward, clutching the charm. "Stop," she cried. "The truth has already spoken." The river's voices shifted, the cries twisted into laughter, mocking, endless. And then, beneath it all, a familiar tone, the voice of the river mother. "You call me child of pain. Now you must listen." Nandi fell to her knees. "You said truth would bring peace. Peace is what grows after fire," the voice said. "But you've let it burn without mercy." Images flashed in her mind, the burned trading camp, the terrified man's face, the scorched mark of the woman's face at the chief's house. It had all spread because of her. "You walk with my power," the river said. "But even the river needs banks to guide its flood." The spirit's cries softened. The villagers looked around, trembling as the echoes began to fade. Nandi rose slowly. "Then guide me," she whispered. "Tell me how to stop it." The voice in the water replied, faint but steady. "Find the one who sold you. The circle is open because of her greed. Only she can close it." Nandi's breath caught. "Mara?" "Yes. Until her heart is washed clean, the water will not rest." The river fell silent. The gourd stopped humming. The boy was gone. Only the wind remained, carrying faint traces of singing, not sorrowful now but warning. By dawn Nandi packed her things. The woman who had helped her stood by the path. "You woke the echoes," she said quietly. "We heard the voice. The river called you by name." "I didn't mean to harm anyone," Nandi said. The woman nodded. "The river never blames. It remembers." She handed Nandi a woven pouch. "Dried yam. You'll need strength for the road. The path to your old village isn't straight, it bends through memory." Nandi took the pouch, her eyes heavy with resolve. "If I find her, will it end?" "Only if you forgive her," the woman said. "And only if she forgives herself." She walked on. The air grew hotter as the day climbed. Every stream she crossed whispered fragments of her name. Every puddle reflected her face and someone else's, Mara's, merging, fading. By twilight she reached the edge of the world she had fled, the forest clearing where she had been sold. The ground still smelled faintly of burnt oil. And in the distance, the faint outline of her old home stood like a scar on the horizon. Nandi touched Kenu's charm. "The river waits," she murmured. And then, faintly from the trees came a familiar sound, her stepmother's voice trembling, speaking to someone unseen. "She's coming for me. I saw her in the water." Her face, it smiled. The clearing was smaller than Nandi remembered. The huts were gone, burned, scattered, yet the old well still stood ringed with weeds, the air thick with the scent of rain and smoke. Mara stood beside it, shoulders hunched, her hair streaked with gray and river mud. In her hand, she clutched the silver bracelet she once wore on the day she sold Nandi for food. Her eyes darted to every shadow, as if expecting something to crawl out of them. When she saw Nandi, she froze. "You're dead," Mara whispered. Her voice trembled like a leaf. "I saw you fall. The man dragged you. I saw." "You watched," Nandi said quietly, stepping closer. "You did nothing." The air shifted, the wind carrying a scent of wet stone. Behind them, the river began to murmur again, low and rhythmic, like a drumbeat of memory. Mara stumbled back, shaking her head. "I was hungry. The fields had dried, the chief's men took everything, your father was dying. I had no choice." Nandi's gaze stayed steady. "You had a choice. You chose to sell me, not yourself." Pause. Then, a crack of thunder somewhere deep in the forest. Mara dropped to her knees. "Please. I prayed for you. I dreamed you were still alive. Every time I touched water I heard your name. It never stopped." "The river doesn't forget," Nandi said softly. "And neither do I." The wind picked up. The well began to bubble. A trickle of water ran up its sides, forming strange patterns, swirls and loops that pulsed with light. Mara's eyes widened. "No, not again." The river's voice, soft at first, then echoing through the trees, spoke from everywhere at once. Truth must return to its source. Mara covered her ears, sobbing. "Please, I can't." But Nandi's voice joined the current. "Come, steady, unyielding. You took from the water. Now it calls for balance." Rain began to fall, slow at first, then heavy, cold, relentless. Nandi stepped closer, her face half lit by lightning. "Do you remember the night you pushed my mother's necklace into the river?" she asked. "The one she wore when she died?" Mara flinched. "I only wanted her gone." Her name was still spoken after she was buried. I wanted peace. Nandi's voice sharpened. You buried her memory. You buried me too. The rain soaked them both now, and the earth beneath their feet began to soften. The well overflowed, water snaking toward the riverbank in silver veins. The ground hissed, steam rising where the water touched it, alive, aware. Mara tried to stand, but her legs trembled. If I say I'm sorry, will it end? Nandi looked down at her, the woman who had taken everything, who had left her for hunger and superstition. No, she said finally. But it will begin to heal. Mara blinked through the rain. Then what do I do? Tell the truth. All of it. Not to me, to the river. The older woman stared at the flowing water. Her mouth quivered. I sold her for food. I lied. I said she was cursed. I wanted her gone because I feared her voice. Because when she sang, I heard the river answer back, and it frightened me. She fell forward, her hands sinking into the mud. I feared her. I feared you. The wind stopped. The rain paused as if listening. Then the ground beneath the well cracked open. A stream of light burst upward, spiraling like a column, illuminating both women. Nandi's heart pounded. The light was warm, not burning but cleansing. She felt the weight in her chest ease for the first time since her drowning. The river spoke again. Truth has been spoken. The wound begins to close. Mara lifted her face, tears mixing with the rain. Is it done? Nandi's voice softened. Almost. She knelt beside her stepmother and placed the wooden charm, Kenu's gift, in her hand. This is what kept me alive, she said. The memory of someone who believed in me. You don't have to believe in me, but believe in the river. It forgives what you confess. Mara looked at the charm as if it burned. Then, with trembling hands, she pressed it to her heart. The moment she did, the ground pulsed, and the silver bracelet slipped from her wrist, dissolving into water before it touched the earth. A glow rose from beneath her skin, faint, blue, like moonlight through tears. Nandi took her hand. For the first time neither flinched. The storm began to break. Clouds drifted apart, and the first light of dawn touched the horizon. The air smelled clean, almost sweet. Mara looked toward the river. It's quiet again, she whispered. Does that mean it's over? Nandi shook her head. No. It means it's waiting. Waiting for what? For what comes after truth, Nandi said. Forgiveness. She stood and turned toward the riverbank. The water reflected her face, and beside it Mara's. No longer enemies. Just two women bound by the same current. They walked together to the edge. As their reflections touched, the river shimmered, and for a heartbeat, the faces beneath the surface changed. Ebel. The river mother. Kino. Countless others. All watching. And then the river whispered. Remember me gently. The light faded. The river flowed normally again. Mara sank to her knees, exhausted, eyes closed, whispering a prayer. Nandi looked at her one last time, then turned away. She walked upriver, barefoot, the dawn painting her path gold. Every step she took rippled faintly, the ground shimmering like liquid glass beneath her feet. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. The river had already remembered everything for her. The days after the storm felt strange, as if the sky had exhaled after holding its breath too long. The river ran clear again, smooth and silver under the sun. Fish returned. Birds sang. And in the village, no one dared draw water without whispering Nandi's name first. They said it wasn't fear, it was respect. The elders built a small shrine beside the riverbank, where the old well had cracked open. They shaped it from clay and woven reeds, and at its center they left a wooden charm, the one Mara had held when the storm broke. No one touched it. But every morning the charm glistened with dew, even when the rest of the earth was dry. Mara lived quietly after that day. She stopped wearing jewelry, stopped speaking during gatherings, and spent her days tending the shrine. Children whispered that when she slept, she talked to the river, softly as if apologizing again and again. Sometimes she smiled faintly in her sleep. Other times she woke up crying. The people began calling her Omi Masai, Mother of the River, a name she never asked for but never refused. Tayo meanwhile rebuilt what the flood had taken. He became the keeper of stories, recording everything he remembered of Nandi, her laughter, her songs, her strange way of listening to the wind before it rained. When children gathered around him at dusk, he would begin the same way. She wasn't a ghost. She was a voice the river lent to the living. He taught them the song Nandi had sung before the storm, a melody of truth and memory. At first their voices trembled. But soon the whole village sang with strength. And when they did, the air seemed to shimmer as if Nandi were walking among them. One night, under the full moon, Teo heard the river hum again. It was faint, softer than before, not angry but curious. He followed the sound to the edge of the forest, where the current split into two streams. There, in the shallows, a young girl knelt, no more than 10 years old, filling a calabash. She was humming the same song. When Teo stepped forward, the girl turned. Her eyes were silver in the moonlight. "Who taught you that song?" he asked gently. "The river," she said simply. "It sings when I'm alone." Teo's breath caught. He smiled, not in fear but awe. "The river remembers her," he whispered. "It carries her voice forward." By dawn the story spread. Children began to hum the melody whenever they fetched water. Mothers taught it to their babies. And during the rains, when thunder rolled through the valley, people swore they could hear Nandi's harmony between the cracks of lightning. The chief declared a new day of remembrance, Idili, the day of listening, when the whole village would walk to the water's edge and sing for those the river had taken. No sacrifices. No fear. Only truth and song. Mara lived long enough to see the first Idili. She sat by the shrine as hundreds of voices rose around her, blending with the wind. Her eyes filled with tears, not of guilt this time but peace. And as the final song faded, a soft ripple formed in the river. It shaped itself into the faint outline of a woman's face, calm, watching and smiling. Mara bowed her head and whispered, "Go in peace, my daughter. Your voice has made me human again." The wind carried her words away, down the river into the sea. That night Teo dreamed of Nandi. She stood by the water, the moon reflecting in her eyes. "You stayed," she said. "And that is enough." He reached for her, but she shook her head gently. "The river doesn't need me anymore. It remembers through you all." "Where will you go?" he asked. Nandi smiled. "Everywhere water flows." Then she stepped backward into the current. The river glowed around her, then stilled. In the morning when Teo awoke, the charm from the shrine lay beside his bed, dry, warm, shining faintly. He placed it on his window ledge, whispering, "The river's daughter has gone home." And outside, the river sang again, not in mourning but in gratitude. Seasons became years and years folded into stories. The floodwaters receded, the village rebuilt, and yet, whenever someone passed the river at night they walked a little faster. Not out of fear but reverence, because the river had changed. It no longer murmured aimlessly, it spoke. Its ripples hummed softly at dusk, like a mother whispering to her child. And though no one could quite explain it, everyone who listened long enough felt the same thing. A weight lifted, a hidden guilt stirring, or a truth pressing gently on their chest. The old generation told it simply. When you lie, the river hears. No one dared cheat during trade. No one left the hungry unfed. And when quarrels broke out, people went to the water's edge, dipped their hands in and swore by Nandi's name. Those who spoke falsehood found the current drag them a step forward, as if to remind them, the river knows what you hide. In time, the story of Nandi, the girl sold for food, the girl who became the river's daughter, spread beyond her village. Travelers came from far lands, merchants and priests alike, each carrying their own stories of guilt. Some sought blessings. Others sought forgiveness. A few came just to listen, hoping to hear the legendary voice. One merchant swore he had heard a song woven into the current, a melody so soft that it loosened a pain in his chest he didn't know he carried. He left his gold coins in the sand and walked away barefoot. Teo, now gray-haired and slow, sat often by the shrine that had been built for her. He became known as the keeper of the water's story. Children gathered around him and he would tell them about Nandi, not as a ghost, not as a saint, but as truth itself, made living through mercy. He told them how she forgave, how she freed her stepmother, how she let her pain turn to something purer. "You cannot drown truth," he would say, smiling faintly. "It floats. It sinks. It waits." One year a drought came, stronger than any before. The ground cracked, the crops shriveled, and the elders feared the river had finally gone silent. The villagers gathered at the dry bank and sang Nandi's song. Their voices were weak, trembling from hunger. At first nothing happened. Then one drop fell. Then another. The sky darkened, the clouds swelled and rain poured, not in fury but in rhythm, like a slow heartbeat keeping time with their song. The river swelled again and with it came the faintest whisper. "Do not forget why I wept." Teo smiled through the rain, tears mixing with the drops. He whispered back, "We never will." The drought ended and the legend deepened. From that day, every time the rain fell, people said Nandi was walking again, checking, listening, reminding. And whenever injustice crept into the land, whenever someone lied or sold the weak or betrayed a friend, the rain grew strange. It would fall for days, not flooding, not destroying, but never stopping. As if the sky itself refused to dry its eyes until truth was spoken aloud. One night, as Teo's life neared its twilight, he dreamed of Nandi again. She stood in a place that wasn't land or water, dressed in blue light. She reached for him, not to pull him away but to give him something. A single drop of water hung between them, glowing like a star. When he took it, he saw within it 1,000 faces, women, men, children, all standing at riverbanks across the world, each with their own pain, their own truth unsung. "Do you see now?" she whispered. "The river never ends. It only changes name." He nodded, tears falling freely. When he woke, dawn had come and the rain was falling again. That morning, the villagers found him by the river, seated peacefully beneath the shrine. His eyes were closed, but he was smiling. Beside him, his walking stick lay half buried in wet earth, the carvings along its side glowing faintly blue. The rain did not stop for 3 days. But when it did, the sky was clear in a way no one had ever seen. And from that day on, the people began greeting the river differently. They no longer said, "The river flows." They said, "The river remembers." Because in its quiet, endless song, they could still hear her voice. Not accusing, not haunting, but steady as truth itself. Feed the hungry. Speak no lies. And never forget the girl the river chose to carry. 100 years passed. The world changed. New kings rose and fell, new roads crossed old lands, and the little village by the river grew into a town. But the people still said, "The river remembers." Every child grew up knowing the story of Nandi, the girl who was betrayed, who forgave, and who became the spirit of truth in the water. Her shrine stood by the bend of the river, worn smooth by countless hands that came to pray, to confess, or to simply listen. No one left empty-hearted. One morning, a young girl named Leone came alone to the river. She was 12, with sharp eyes and calloused feet, the daughter of a widow who sold clay pots. Her mother had told her the old stories, but Leone never truly believed them. The world she knew was louder, crueler. Men cheated in the markets, the chief's sons took what they wanted, and those who complained were silenced. The river, she thought, was just water. Still, she came because her mother had been accused of theft, accused by the very man she had sold pots to for years. Tomorrow the chief would order her hands cut off. Leone had begged, screamed, sworn her mother's innocence. No one listened. Now she stood barefoot in the mud, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Please," she whispered to the water, her voice shaking, "if you remember her, if you remember anyone like her, help us." The current moved softly, curling around her ankles. Then for a moment it stilled. And in that stillness she heard a voice, not loud, not ghostly, but like someone speaking inside her breath. Truth must speak through courage. Leone gasped, stumbling back. The surface rippled again as if amused. And then something strange rose from the water, a thin stream twisting in the air, shaping itself into symbols like liquid light. When it touched the sand, the water wrote a name. Theo. The next day the town gathered before the chief's hall. Leone's mother was dragged out in ropes, her face covered in dust. The merchant who accused her smirked, standing with his guards. But before the punishment began, Leone stepped forward. She was trembling, but her voice was clear. "My mother is innocent," she said. "She did not steal. The truth lies with the river." The crowd murmured. The chief frowned. "The river?" he scoffed. "The old tales?" "Yes," Leone said. "Let it decide as it once did." The villagers shifted uneasily. It was forbidden now. The practice of trial by water had been banned generations ago. But something in her tone, something fierce and ancient, silenced their laughter. Even the chief hesitated. For a long time he said nothing. Then he nodded. "Very well. The river remembers, does it not? Let it judge." They brought her mother and the merchant to the water's edge. The crowd gathered, whispering the old chant, a song no one had sung in years. "River of Nandi, truth of our tongue, show us the clean, reveal the wrong." Leone held her breath. The current stirred, first softly, then with purpose. The merchant stepped forward, sneering. "If your goddess loves you, let her save you." He dipped his hand in the water. The river looked calm, until the moment he tried to pull back. His arm froze. Then the water climbed higher, curling around him like vines. He screamed. The current glowed faintly blue, and from its depths came a single word. "Lies." The crowd fell silent. The merchant collapsed, coughing, soaked, terrified. When he looked down, the pouch of stolen coins fell from his robe, scattering into the sand. The river receded. Annlena's mother, untouched, unbound, stood in the sunlight as free as truth itself. From that day the town changed. People began visiting the river again, not just to worship but to listen. The shrine was rebuilt, with Teyo's name carved beside Nandi's. Annlena became the new keeper of the water's story. She was young, but the river whispered to her often. Sometimes it sang, sometimes it warned. And every time she asked why it had chosen her, the water gave the same answer. Because truth must find a voice, again and again. Years later, travelers would still tell of the day the river glowed blue and spoke the word lies. They said the girl by the water had eyes like lightning and courage like dawn. And they said that when she smiled, you could see the river shining behind her, calm, knowing, eternal. And in the quiet ripples of that same river, the faintest echo could still be heard. The girl the river carried still walks among us.